Hi. It's funny, we were talking about how sometimes things have to be hard before they get easy, or before we learn, we have to go through darkness or things like that. We didn't really land on anything. There's no answer, but I just came across this. I wanted to share it. It's so simple. Vernon Howard says, "Here's a mystery to unravel. Each new upliftment must be preceded by a plunge into the darkness, like a train going upward through a tunnel. Why must darkness and uncertainty precede our exit into the sunlight of a higher level? This darkness indicates a willingness to shed vain illusions that we already know this or that. It is a state of honest receptivity to wisdom greater than our own." I thought it was so simple, and realizing that, we wouldn't be that humble or that receptive if we didn't go through the darkness. We would just kind of be complacent. And so those times are when you strip everything away in your current consciousness, or what you don't need, and open to be able to be open to the new knowing and understanding. I thought it was beautiful.
This is a noble attempt.
Mama,
How are you?
good. Just had to do my coffee and my nervous pregame poop.
Oh yeah, it's morning for you.
It doesn't matter. It could be night. Even when I used to play basketball, I used to always poop right before I play.
It used to happen to me in bookstores. I went to a bookstore. Gosh, let's get excited. Oh, that's a good idea. Can I get some water before we start talking?
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to you, but I'm always excited to talk to you. We should always record our recording hours. I always wish they were recorded anyway, so.
Well, let's just start because it's already recording. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Just going straight into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back to the Noble Attempt. This week, or this day's guest, is my mama. So I'll introduce my mom from what the things I know her to be and do. She is a poet, very strong poet and writer, a painter, an artist altogether, a healer. I put here like cool, trippy, wise, and loving, because she's just a trippy person to have as a parent, and I'm super grateful. I tell people about you, and people are like, wow, you're lucky, or you're blessed, or you're just from explaining the conversations we have or the relationship we have. So yeah, I put growing, resilient, and just a blessing. I think everyone when I'm out with you in places, or when you've been around my friends, just everyone just kind of knows and sees that you really like a blessing to everyone who you encounter. And they could be any type of person. I think that's where the real magic comes in, is like you don't seem to have like a preference of who you give favor to. You just kind of treat everyone with the same level of like acceptance and love, until someone maybe does something to disearn that. But you give even to animals or plants. I think it's like a widespread just love. So that makes you a very powerful person in a humble and peaceful way. And so I'm grateful that you're my mama, my friend. I'm excited to talk with you more. Do you want to say hello and anything about yourself?
Well, just thank you for that. And I feel like I feel so fortunate to have been chosen by you to be your vessel to get you here on this planet. I'm just in awe and blessed that I think your soul picked me, or we agreed on that beforehand, is what I feel. And I got to be the spaceship for you to land here and do all the more extroverted type of work that you do, where I'm kind of in the background working one-on-one with people, or quietly you just do these big and bold motions that create ripple effects of good. And I think also for me, the word love, like you use it so liberally and it's so beautiful, is synonymous for me with creation. They're the same word for me, love and creation. And I see you as manifesting love in creation. So you create more love, you create who knows what next. Could be a podcast. I never know what's going to come next. I remember telling someone okay, I'm just going to mom out for a second, but I remember someone talking to me about remembering when you were little, and we're talking about building handmade furniture, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember you were like 4 maybe, and I needed a little table, and you said, I'll make you a table. You were so little. I gave you a hammer and nails.
Probably like 10.
No, you were so little, and I came up with this wonky, weird ass table with you figured it out though. It was a table. It held I could put a teacup on it and had some weird gold paint on it, and it was just creating. It was creating. No one taught you how to do that, and you'd figure things out. And so that's been inspiring to me since you were little, not just as a mom, just as a person. And watching you go to sleep coloring with the blue crayon, there was just this creative power and force that you've brought to the world and into my life. And really, some of the things that you'll say you're grateful to in me are directly in relationship to you, all my children, but you in this special way. Whether that was just looking at you in the car and laughing my head off, we're laughing our heads off with no reason, and there's some spirit there, or the trouble you gave me in high school, and I had to deal with it and grow, and you're just doing your best. And then this man that you're becoming, that's a light to the world. It's all been nurturing to me too, and I treasure you and this relationship. So thank you for being my friend and co-creator and my son.
Yeah. Thanks, Mama. Enough about me.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you asked me something else.
Back to you. Okay, so I described a bunch of things you do because you do a lot of stuff, and you always kind of have. I watched you growing up just experiment with different arts, with different churches, with different, just super open to different avenues of expression or existence. So I know right now you're doing coaching as a profession. You're also still writing. From when I talk to you, you have these spurts of writing. Whatever you want to share, what you're working on, what you feel like you want to share about any of your crafts or of your life right now.
Well, I'll share about the coaching just because that word is so vague, and it even has, there's Saturday Night Live skits on making fun of life coaches. And then there's, what does that even mean? And there's team coaches. And I use that term. I chose to use that term instead of high priestess because I really felt like it's an accessible term that I see myself when I work with clients or small groups, that, someone's running a marathon and there's someone to be there with the water and the energy that's go, you got this, and to help maybe shine a light where it's dark. But it's really just working with people's own inner light. And I find that it's a portal. The word coach and the client relationship is more just a doorway to get into a very mystical experience. It's not something I need to advertise, because maybe you're coaching on the simplest, most mundane, basic dream someone has, to do something physical. But really, for me, it always comes back to, I think all desires are really a desire for God or for your true self. But I don't see any problem with the self-realization piece or manifesting piece. Sometimes that's the way that people get to service. So I don't separate that. And that's why coaching works for me, as I feel like one of the things I was born to do. So, but I look at it as a portal into a realm that doesn't have any definition, where I never know what's going to happen, because it's a co-creation. It's not me doing anything special, but being there, and it's a lot of energy work. So there's activations, and then there's I see like a pyramid, and then there's the coach and the client are on the same plane together. Their spirits are, and then this pyramid is formed by relationship. So it's all about connection. Even though there may be some teaching and some transmission, it's still mostly about the connection. Sometimes I'm just sitting there and the client tells me something to say to them. I don't know where it comes from, but it could be like their grandpa suddenly shows up or some challenge they want me to present. And it's usually a little bit, it can be mind blowing, but I just get out of the way and let that happen. So that's what I'm working on. I don't have a better word for it yet than coaching.
Yeah.
That's what
and sometimes like you said, there's a lot of things taking place within the portal, but sometimes for a human, like you need a word to initiate it. I remember someone telling, like, I just said, I really want to work with kids. And she said, be a coach. Like, that's just a way, you know, you're not necessarily just a coach. You might be a teacher, a mentor, a guide, all these other things, a brother, a dad, all these things, but you just call yourself a coach and you coach because that's like the way to create the access. And I think it's kind of similar. I mean, obviously, I don't think you're working with children necessarily, but it's a similar thing in that coaching maybe just creates the access, and then what's happening there can be more than just coaching. You know, what are people looking for when they come to you? What are they?
That's a great question. Often I think there's two layers, or probably more than two, but there's definitely two layers to that. Most people are coming to me. There's usually a spiritual calling inside. That's why they gravitate toward me. But there's often a sense of either deep dissatisfaction for no obvious reason. Like there's just this deep moreness. They sense that moreness when you're disconnected from source. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You could be in the first world on top of a mountain sitting in a mansion and be miserable, or you can be, you know, it doesn't matter. When people are disconnected from their source, misery follows.
Yeah.
So there's often that piece. They just want to connect. Something is telling them that they're ready to shine or to be expressed or to serve. Sometimes I just want to be of service to the world suddenly. I think the planet's changing that way. A lot of people are suddenly feeling like, I want to serve. How do I serve? And I want to do it through like each person say they're like a stained glass window, and it's a dirty, just filled with culture and biases and conditioning. It's just like this opaque window. And then I think they come to have help washing that and clearing that and seeing what colors are here, so that just their natural source shines through. The light's already there. Yeah. But it's opaque. So I think they come for that, and they might come for something specific, like I hate my job, I run away, or want to deepen my relationship, or any practical thing. A lot of people come to me, they do want to get to know themselves better. They somehow turn 40 or something like that and realize, I don't even know myself. I don't even know what I really, really want here on this little plane that I'm on, this little life. They see the bookends. There's a birth, there's a death, and there's just this in-between space for now in this body to do something with, and time's ticking, so they'll come and those are very beautiful when they come from that space, just with the realization of them in death, birth, and space in between. There's a big acceleration that can happen from that realization when you're aware of your death and birth. Don't think, this is an endless thing. When you're in this one avatar, you only get so much time. So that's another reason a lot of people come. It's just, there's something more. What's here? Who am I? Who am I? Yeah.
And then I guess on the other side of it, for you, I know you're the leader of it, or people are coming to you as clients, but then what are you soaking up? Or is it, because I know anytime I help any other person, whether it's through a structured format or not, I'm also growing, and maybe it's not in the same way as them, but I'm always. So are you noticing?
Well, tell me more. What do you mean with your question? Like, tell me how you are. What's a way you grow when you show up for other people?
I guess just when I show up for someone else, and like you said, what you said about the window is cool, because you're not like creating, you're not trying to create something out of someone or make them build something new. You're just kind of like, well, before we build something new, let's look at what we already have. Like, it's like saving resources. Like, why would we be building when we still have a lot to clean? You know, we still have a lot to do right in front of us. So I think if I'm ever able to help show someone that, I kind of like, I don't know, it kind of shows me where I may be ignoring, you know, my dirty windows, or like what, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not able to help someone else with that and ignore the fact that my windows are not completely shining or whatever. So I don't know. I just wonder if, do you need to completely take yourself out of it because you're serving someone, or are you able to like kind of relish in the way what you get from it, or do you share that with them even that you're having growth also? I just wonder kind of how that.
That's a good question, and I think my understanding of it is changing. So what if you would have asked me this last week, I would have a different answer, and the week before a different answer, and a different answer now, and then in an hour it might be different. I don't know, but right now I will say it's incredibly humbling. It's like humbling sounds cliche. Let me get a better word. I'm stripped of ego. So what happens in that dynamic is sometimes so powerful and so useful. There's no way that I, with what's going on with this, could have thought of it or brought it. So no, I'm not all squeaky clean, or I can be in shit. And then somehow though, when I sit in that space and just, there's like, I step out of the way and align with what's true. And then it almost doesn't matter that intent to be there so purely that way. Doesn't matter if I've gone through very deep losses and then been able to show up in that space, and then it's gone. And then what happens is this source comes through and says what needs to be said, or holds space the way it needs to be held. And then I leave in tears, sometimes just humbled with, I'm grateful then for the difficult things that I've gone through, or the weakness, the humanity that I have, because if not these difficult things, I would maybe think it was me showing up with my, all the reading I've done or all the meditating I've done, but it's not, it's so clearly not. And so I really get from the connection, I get a sense of, we have access to a higher power anytime we want. There's nothing you need to do. There's no meditating. There's no getting it right. There's no reading enough. It's there right now. And now again, you can always start over. You could be in a fit of rage and making mistakes, and then just, it's right there. Come back. Breath.
But I always wonder, like, because you can tap into it, but that's like you consciously tapping into it. Even when you were unconsciously fucking up, wasn't that still it? You know what I mean? Wasn't that still part of the, like, it's not ideal to be a mess, but I think like,
yeah, it's included.
It's included. Like,
right?
It was just as this, it just looked like this, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. That one's always tricky. It's included, yet everything's included. I see that everything is, reality is God, right? Everything is as it should be. Everything is included, but yet there's this feeling of wanting to reach higher or do better, as a planet. And then that has to start with each person, of course. We can't fix anything out there if we can't even deal with our own fears. So yeah, that one's a tough one to put words to, right? Because everything's included. Yet we want to kind of dip this whole system into a pool of light and bring it back out.
My mom is the queen of the feel all your feelings, the queen of feeling your feelings. Like, since I was super young, she's always encouraged me to feel everything that I feel. And I remember being young and not really wanting to hear that. Like, don't tell me that. Like, I don't want to feel angry or whatever. Like the things you don't want to feel what you're feeling or sadness or anything. But obviously as the years go on, you're still there saying it. That could have been 14, you were saying it. 24, you're still there saying it. And I start to kind of grasp more what that actually means. And it's to this day something that I still use to just look at everything on a more neutral playing field, whether I'm feeling really shitty or whether I'm feeling really joyful, not to get too wrapped up in either of those, but just notice them. Obviously, I really appreciate when it comes to the joy, and I try and be grateful, but I don't know, just you established that in me of giving space to all my experience. And I wonder how you got that at whatever age you became aware of that and started sharing that to your children or whoever else you encounter. Because it's like, it's a simple thing. It's just asking you to feel what's there instead of telling a story about it or running from it or denying it, whatever, or numbing it. It's just feel it. And it's so simple, but I just wonder, like, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe just to straight apply it to you. Like you must use that for yourself because you've been telling me to do it forever.
Yeah, I think I don't remember not being aware that that was something rich about being alive. And I do remember it wasn't popular, in my family growing up or in my culture, definitely not. So it was like incongruent for me, but I tied it, now that you asked me, I tied it to knowing things that were important to me. And the access to knowing came through allowing myself to feel. I somehow realized that it was intuition or sort of like knowing where the lost keys are. It could have been that simple, being young, or knowing that words had a lot more power than just their meaning. And so all the access to the things that interested me, I was steeped in the Bible in my family, and a lot of it was rules and judgment. But I liked the Bible at that time. I would read more the poetry, like in the Psalms. And there's so many beautiful poems, and they were so filled with feeling that it was not congruent with these rules that were being, sort of retranslated for whatever need the people who used them had to control whoever they wanted to control. And I could kind of wonder, like, these beautiful Psalms out here, there's so much feeling in it. So I think I was little, and I found solace in the awareness that came with emotion. And not just emotion, but that kind of a feeling sense, what's like an energetic feeling sense. And then I was taught to keep that quiet. So that was not bad for me in my case. I don't think that's great advice, but for me, it was good in that I learned to keep it here and really feel it without wasting the energy out. I just really got to feel it and learn what's inside here. What's inside here. What is it? How it works. And it was a gift for me to have it be encouraged. I didn't always stick by that, but to know that it's part of who you are as a human, the whole thing. If you're not connected to your feeling, just lopped off a big part of your life. So somehow intuitively knew that.
Yeah, like half.
Like it's
half
who we
that you're
are.
trying to avoid.
Yeah. I think it's sad when someone has lopped that off, and then the effort to go to not feel it can be like from addictions to, running and buying things or whatever, just to not feel, even being afraid of feeling pain, but also being afraid of feeling ecstasy, which is kind of scary if you haven't felt it a lot. It can be overwhelming. So it just goes to show, like, the story it's often fabricated just to feel like I got to explain what's happening in me. So it's really a good idea, I found, to drop it if it's a bad story that's making you feel awful. Maybe just set it aside for a minute and feel it. A lot of the time, the feeling just goes away. or it's not even yours. It's somebody else's feeling that's being, you're hosting unwillingly, and you can let it go by realizing this isn't even mine. I'm picking up something else. So the drop the story part, I found to be really helpful. I learned that later in life. I would have loved to have learned that when I was younger, to just then be with what's here. And I think there's an energy that moves when you feel what's there. You feel it and it moves. You feel it. Then you're free. If you're not afraid of feelings, you're free. Think about it. If you're not free, it's if you can't feel this, you're constipated all the time. You're not living. You can't make choices because you don't have your full range of your equipment's not working for you to make an assessment of what's going on in here and what do I want or what should I do next or what's the right, if there's no access to just feeling without a story. Does that make sense? I think there's freedom in that. Yeah,
you said constipated, like clogged up. I think like if you're ignoring or suppressing any of the experience, like somehow it's gonna show up, and like so it has to show up because it wants to be seen or felt. And I could see, like you said, making decisions. Like I think someone said something about like peace is not like the absence of war. It's just like it's the opposite of like confusion. So like confusion, and that resonated with me because I look at the last 3 years of my life, and the times where I'm not at peace are the times when I'm overthinking and I'm trying to make decisions, and maybe I didn't even need to be making a decision at that time, but I choose to spend the energy, and it's just pure confusion. And it's not a peaceful feeling. It's a unnerving thing. But I think
where do you think confusion comes from?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to try and figure out. I guess the confusion, because it's not really confusion about the decision. You know what I mean? I don't think it's not about like, oh, where are we going to move or what's our next, step. That's how it shows up. But the confusion itself, I think it's more like just a physical thing. Because if I'm sitting around coming up with all these stories of why I'm confused, my body's feeling something off and it's tense and it's not. But when I'm not confused is when I'm outside gardening. Like seriously, that would be one of in the past year, especially one of the only times where I didn't feel that confusion or that sense of lack or like I need what's next in life? It's just planting seeds, planting ornamentals, making the pots for them. And my body would be calmer in that state, and it's not like I was trying to make a decision. I was completely focused on what I was doing, but that was probably better for my decision making than actually looking at the thing and like I'm trying to figure out what's the next move, and my body's like this and nothing good happens and it gets more tense. And if I'm doing it with my partner, then it gets more clashy and then nothing works. But if we're outside and we make decisions, or even on a walk, or I think it starts physically, even though it is a decision you will make with your brain in the end. I think if you start physically and like get your body in the right mode, it makes it a little more clear. I don't know if that went way off, but that's just how I.
No, that's so. I know it's really resonant for me about moving and being outside. I mean, you said so much in that, touching the soil, being outdoors, setting the mind chatter, the monkey mind aside. I kind of want to challenge one thing though that you said just came up to me like a little bit of a challenge, is that it's going to be your brain in the end that decides. I wonder if that's maybe not true, and that there's thoughts, and that we do need to use our brain for doing math and making, like getting to the airport on time, or, deciding when to cross the street, and just doing these thought things, we're making an outline, things like that. But often I think when we get out of thought, this is going to get woo-woo right here. Just like flag it, advisory, woo-woo advisory tag here. But my experience is that thought only goes so far, and it's super important, and don't want to diminish it. It's a brain, your mind's a powerful machine. 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 And your mind's a powerful machine. For rational thought, we want to bring reason to things, and at the same time, when there's another thing that's, I would call it awareness, that's got a little bit of thought in it, but it's something else. It's something else that is so hard to explain, the way love is hard to explain. What is that? Why do some people are somatic, so they just find themselves doing the thing that they were grappling with. They just suddenly are writing, or they suddenly know where they want to move. They just know. Maybe they've done a lot of thinking, and that participated, that went into it. But the final thing that's really feels aligned and clicks in place, often in my experience, is not with the brain, but with awareness. So little brain seeds are planted, but then there's nature. Reality just happens, and it just grows. It's like, oh, I guess this is what I decided. I guess this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then the brain comes back in.
And the brain goes, it's like, well, I don't know. make a list, pros and cons list. Everything's included.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think I would agree with that. I want to argue just out of stubborn sunness. I'm like, well, wait a minute, but what about? But no, I actually do agree. I think there's like the autopilot thing that goes, like you said, it's nature happening.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's a consciousness or some thought, something thoughty to it, but it's not like a human thought. Same way like plants are growing and adjusting to heavy rain or wind or whatever comes their way. They adjust. There's some sort of thought behind that, I think. I don't know the science behind that, but it's not like a human thought. I don't think they're making lists trying to decide. They just do it. It just happens, and it's usually for the best.
Yeah. I think adopting the idea that we are more plant-like than we realize in that way, we forget that we're nature beings.
Yeah.
And whatever, all that we do is nature. When people like to say that's not natural, that's not.
Yeah.
But if an animal did it, it's a part of it's organic. It's natural.
Sure.
We are nature beings, like it or not. We do weird things, but we're nature beings. But I think if we rest into that nature beingness, we rest into it, then the thoughts are more supportive, and they know when to get out of the way and just feel, and then have some thoughts that are clear and reasoned. They're not filled with patterns and repressed emotion, biases, conditioning. All of that thoughts come with, no matter what we do with them. They can't be pure enough to not have those things. But this knowing that is our nature being in reality, that involves it always. I think the evidence of when it's there, it's easier to talk about the proof of it than how to do it, is there's often surprise. There's a surprise element, like I wouldn't have thought of that, or who knew I would be doing this, or who knew she would say that, or there's this element of surprise that tells me, like a lovely, beautiful surprise that tells me it's there. And also,
or a terrible one.
Or a terrible surprise that has gifts.
Sure,
yeah. Truly a terrible surprise that just opens up so many gifts, which we know how that happens. I mean, that just going through a typhoon, that how awful for losing everything. And then out of that springs so much love and so much support for people, and how to rebuild on the ground. And I mean, just the idea of symbolically having everything wiped away,
Cleansed.
loss, and people having to connect with each other, person to person, soul to soul.
Well, and when you talk about that, like really a big wipeout, my neighbor kept saying like everyone's on the same playing field now. I mean, like there's still levels to it. Like the doctor fixed his house a lot faster than the farmer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for a while there, everyone was at an equal place, and just like, and then you see so much of human nature come out with how people react. Because you see the wealthiest person in town stressing because they lost a lot, or they feel like they lost a lot, tangibly, physically. And so they're stressing and they're miserable, as opposed to shit. Me, for example, like I don't think I stressed at all. It turned into like a, I don't know. I just enjoyed it in a strange way. It was like just shocked you from like when yesterday I was probably calling you complaining about some very petty problem I had. You're right. And just fully in this life where like little things are bothering you and there's all these problems to figure out and all this bullshit. And then you almost lose your life. You and everybody you live, everybody on the island, like almost lose your life and lose a lot of your stuff and lose your shelter. And you can't help but laugh a little bit of like, oh shit, like, okay, there's more important things than whatever I was stressing about yesterday. And it just snaps you into a new reality. Just like that, you know, you talk about that was a big, and just like, so me personally, I felt grateful. I said, okay, all the material things that got destroyed, like, thank you. I guess those are, I was meant to have my load lightened. And then the others, everything, I don't know. It just depends how you look at it. And so I would talk to one neighbor and they would like smile and say, yeah, this is life. We'll be fine. And then the next person, more people are like that, to be honest. People are just resilient and just like, yeah, we'll be fine. But then you see usually the people with more physical things to lose, we're stressing the fuck, they're stressing out, and they felt like the world was ending and they had so much to do and they lost so much. And even though they still had way more than the average person, they still had more. They weren't looking at it though. They're looking at everything they lost over there and they're miserable. Yeah. And it's like you were saying about the, you know, it could be someone in a mansion going through more misery than someone in the hood, like with barely making it paycheck to paycheck. It helps me take away all judgment for like what experience is good and what's bad. Because it's like you think you want more money, and then you think you want a nicer house or a bigger house or this or whatever you think you want, or you think you want less. And those are all fine. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with any of those. But you see, if you look at the human spectrum of like suffering, like there's people with all the material goods in the world and they're fucking miserable. And there's people who literally lost who already had next to nothing and who lost that little chunk of next to nothing in a storm, and they're still smiling and going about their way. They're not too wrapped up in the story that I lost my house and they're not caught up in that. They're like, okay, what do we have to do today? We have to feed our family and maybe even our neighbors. And we have to go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and be strong again. And I pray that they have the space to, if they are feeling bad about their situation at some point, to feel that too and not just joke it off. Or, you know, when everything's wiped out, all the humans start to come out, you know, all the human personalities. And you see, oh, there's just all these personalities, and they could be on this island. They could be in Rainier Beach in the South End. They could be in Tacoma. Like there's all these personalities always start to show themselves.
Yeah, that brings back, it kind of brings back to that, that idea we were talking about earlier, is just, you know, life can crash around and waves can come in and you can like punch at the waves and just thrash around and throw sand at it, you know. And it's like a little kid with their tower that broke, you know, like, they took my tower down, and it just gets really. And yet once we are grown, hopefully we can move into this place of aliveness where we remember our nature, and then that is when we can say reality is this is reality. I'm here. It's almost like that snap. Sometimes for me it comes with, I'm here, just that, I'm here. It's almost like the word you put after I am, how important that is I'm here. And then it is that moment of stripping away everything else, and really you're just here. And it's so exciting when you stop. If you are standing there in the wind just, I'm here. I can relate a tiny bit, not to what the people went through in the typhoon, but as a mom, looking at the map, watching this typhoon hit the island where I know that my son and his partner and my grandbabies were, and having to just go, oh my gosh. And, your mind wants to go everywhere. And 5 days, like, on Instagram and trying to write to surfers and people who live there, hashtag, have you seen him, and pictures, and having to feel this like, oh my gosh, it's that stripping away of what you think is yours. And it's not just material, it's like connections and your people, and it's hard. And that was another moment, many moments during that time where I was, showing up for my clients and giving, praying and thinking of all the people there that were in trouble, but just, it's your person, it's your son, your grandchildren, was that feeling of, I'm here. It's this, like, right now, this is life. And it's so powerful, instant calm. There's nothing else you can do right now. You're here. Whether, if you need to do something, you take the action, but not just, not to say that made it easy, but that made it, got through it until I heard and I understood. I learned a lot from that experience of, like, it's all so temporary.
Well, I was doing the same thing there. You wake up and your floor's flooded and you're just like, oh, I'm here. Like, this is where we are. What's the what's the move? And then you go outside and everyone's like busy doing whatever. Everyone, is a very hectic time the first couple of weeks. But it became normal after 2-3 days. Like, yeah, we're still all washing this shit, trying to dry stuff. Oh, it rained again. Like, oh shit. So there was like a level of like normalness to it, but we were all aware that like our families would be worried about us, like my neighbors who, they have no way to, none of us had any way to contact anyone. We knew it would be on the news.
Yeah.
So you're just like, we're here and we're fine. The sun came out and we're cleaning and we're taking care of each other. But like, when we think about like the drone shot, how fucking terrible it must look. Like, it just looks like really bad.
Yeah.
But then we're just like, you think about that and then you just get back to like, oh, I'm here, and you do the things. But we were all aware of how terrible it must have looked. Because for the most part, there was not a lot of deaths, not a lot of casualties, especially directly from the storm. So we kind of all felt grateful and was like, yeah, we're still here. That was like almost everybody I talked to, whether they were down the street or went to the store. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. And then we just say like, my buhay pa, like, life goes on, we still have life. And that's kind of like the baseline to go from, of like, yeah, we lost a lot of stuff, but we still have life. So then slowly start to figure out what's next,
Yeah.
And that's just the people. And that's like, I guess it's like a less of a human thinking way and more of just like an animal way of like, you could spend all day thinking about what happened and why and how unfair it was or this and that, or you could just like do the things that need to get done.
Yeah.
And get back to it and count your blessings. I was so amazed by the rice field 5 days after the storm was like fully replanted.
Wow.
Like people weren't sitting around like, oh no, they're like, well, this is what needs to happen. I definitely need to go replant that rice that just got wiped out. Just cool. Wow. Just cool what people can do under different circumstances.
I love that. It's almost like a mantra. You said, we're still here. We're still alive. So this is life and we're still alive. It's such a simple thing, but right now I'm still alive. And we get so gripped by it, just like a typhoon and someone rebuilding. You've seen it, I'm sure, when you lived in Seattle, when you're in an urban environment, and you have a problem like where to park, and this is someone's, blah, 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 blah. There's this like very small problems that take on big, magnified proportions, as if a typhoon hit. It's like as if people feel that way. They feel that way for small things, or things like you were talking about. They're afraid of losing their stuff or their person or whatever. And it applies across the board. It's that feeling of like, I'm here though.
Well, right. But imagine if you could like come up with that, like you just came up with it, or like, it's like, you could say that right now, like, I'm still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could say that tomorrow. Nothing crazy needs to happen for you to say that and know that it's real. Cause it could be something else that just takes you out and you're just gone. It's like,
yeah,
like you're lucky to be here, regardless of your little situation. Like
yeah.
it's nice for me, it's nice to be here and I'm grateful to be here. So like, but again, for like someone in a stressful urban environment to cultivate that feeling is challenging. I think it would take mastery because you're wrapped up in whatever else you're feeling.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of influences coming around. There's a lot of forces when you're in an urban environment or in a more crowded place, I think too. Then there's a lot of cultural, just even the city, just people. I mean, there's energies coming in. We are all connected. So there's more to navigate, I think, just other people's brainwaves.
Yeah.
And ideas, that's real. I do think we're influenced by them, and to hold your own, like that isn't mine. Is a challenge when you're around a lot in tight quarters with a lot of people, and especially with a lot of cement and out without soil and plants and oxygen to get to that place like you were talking about when you're planting, how that awareness comes back kind of naturally. I think it takes a few more steps to be in the concrete jungle and be able to get there.
For sure.
We can do it, but it takes a different level of mindfulness or meditative practices, I think, or music.
You got to find a way. I don't know where the quote came from. Carl, who we're living with here, was saying like who said it, but basically saying that like people's level of anxiety is directly correlated to their separation from their true nature. And in this case, I would say true nature is kind of like being separated from nature and from fire and elements and things that keep you feeling healthy mentally and physically. And so you think about the city and like the gap between what like humans have been experiencing forever versus what we're experiencing now or in the last 100 years. It's a big gap. And so it's no wonder there's all this like extra tension floating around, because there's all these people who don't on a day-to-day don't get what they really need to feel alive. You know, and not that they can't. But in the current design, like you said, it's a challenge to do that. Like you would have to really be your little apartment that better have all the plants and all the, you know, like there's a lot more work to do as opposed to just being in circumstances that make that possible. Anyways, we all know that, I mean, city life is like has its benefits too.
Yeah, it does.
Culturally. Okay, let's just move on to, I'm gonna skip this whole other section. You wrote a book, or you compiled a book. What year was that? Many years ago.
I think 2014 or so. Yeah, I think 2014.
I came home from traveling in South America, and I was on a high, very floaty type of existence, very floaty phase of my life, and just pure positivity and bliss. And I came to visit my mom, and she was in the same plane. We were in the same place in that phase. I think we've both floated through all sorts of other phases, but then we were just up here like, and she was working on a book called The Yes Book.
Yeah, blissing out every day.
It was just we were on a good streak.
Yeah,
and
there's a bee.
Wow. Doing yoga with the cats, and it was nice. It was a nice phase. And you were able to successfully compile a book. We don't have to talk too much. I know it's an old project and you have new things coming up, but I just want to we can not skip the story and just snap the essence of it, the essence of yes, which was a very joyful embodiment of just celebrating life in all aspects, in the grief, in the pain, or in the just plain happy goodness. So I guess the last segment I want to go to is like joy as a whole. I don't know if that's the right word, but like I still strive for joy. is that separated by polarities, or is that like a pure, you know what I'm saying? Is there, how do I go about this? Just like I mean, there's a very classic thing we all see and learn on earth is like, yeah, I have all this pain over here, but I've also experienced these wonderful joys, right? And I have, what is that a necessary part of our thing?
You mean the swing along the range?
The range, like, is that just a story, or is a correlation? Like, I need to feel this level of pain to then feel the same level of joy on this other side. Is it direct for you? Is it direct like that? Like mathematically, like, do you literally have to feel this amount of bullshit to then see this amount of good stuff? Like, it's like,
like there's that Khalil Gibran poem where he talks about, I don't remember the exact wording of it, but he talks about your sorrow will carve the cup that holds your joy.
Sure.
And that implies that it's proportionate, right? Because I can't be any more than the sorrow. And I kind of always, argued with that a little, but there's something to it that, there's something to it. I know in my case, my capacity for joy is in some ways proportionate to some of sorrow and grief that I've experienced and had to go through and let that carve me out. And then there is more space. I think the Yes book was a feature of that, was filling this. There's capacity for it because I had felt so much in general. At the same time, I see joy. I guess it depends, I see it kind of like if we have, some people put a scale of emotions and moods from low to high, like in vibrational terms, like ecstasy and bliss up here, and grief and despair down here, and kind of boredom here, and contentment. You've heard of that. There's a scale, and we go up in frequencies and vibrations and moods. And the way I see joy is a little bit like love or light or awareness. All these words I think mean almost the same thing: love, creation, awareness, light. And I see it like, here's the scale up and down. We just go through in life. Of course, we like it better up here, but we feel everything. Maybe it's a keyboard, piano. Maybe it's just low notes and high notes, but we want the whole keyboard, right? But there's this other piece that we all are going to do that. But then there's this piece that goes along with it, wherever the notes are. That's light or joy. So even in my deepest, darkest grief, there can be this joy here, this joy for life, joy for this experience, this deep gratitude. So that's how I see that, where it's both a high note when you're like, you're just so fully there and your life is there too. And then other times you're in these low notes, but there's this like light or love or creation, awareness piece that just goes along with wherever. And whether you know about it or not, it's still there. But what we're talking about is kind of sensing it, which is the ultimate mystical experience, right? Just to become aware of that existence, of that profound experience of love, joy, creation, and wherever you are on it.
Yeah. I think it takes, I don't know about for you, but for me, there's like a natural initiation at some point where you're forced to know about it first. If that makes sense. So like for me, for example, like being in like, whatever, I don't know how old I was, whatever, but being in like really one of the hardest emotional times of my life for whatever reason, but all of a sudden being cracked open within that, being all sad or angry, being cracked open and then crying tears of like everything, tears of like but more towards like feeling real joy. And that's in like literally cracked open from just this terrible experience, what felt terrible, right? And so I didn't choose that. I wasn't consciously like, I'm going to go find, I didn't have the words or the awareness to say, I'm going to find the good in this situation. I was not in that mode at all. Not even close. I had zero awareness of that. So I was fully in my experience of pain. And then something, you could call it God, cracked me open and just like, oh, and I'm like, oh, now I know. Now I have something to strive for. So it happened to me before You know what I'm saying? So now I feel like, oh, okay, now I can strive. I don't want to try too hard, but I can strive to pull that energy out of any situation or find that energy within myself in any situation. But it took a few times, actually, it had to just happen to me, it felt like. And I know it came from here, but I wasn't consciously controlling it, which would be maybe a next stage of like, you know, I'm going to tap back into that. So it just cracked open. It was like a sloppy but strong and like helpful. To where now I have the awareness that within the darkest situation, it's there, and it can be cliche or not. You could that's just what it is. If you don't want to see it and you're not going to allow yourself to see it, you won't. Or you might, or even if you try and block it, or you might get broken open and just feel how wonderful the bliss or the humility of just being just a human, having these times. And then I don't know, I just saw this random video. You see these videos that show humans from a way zoomed out perspective and showcasing different people's life. It was in Tokyo, and it's just showing these different people. And it's this 85-year-old lady who works in a restaurant all day, and then she DJs at night. She said, 8 years ago I started DJing. So it's an 85-year-old woman who cooks in a restaurant all day and then hits the nightlife with her sequin gowns and DJs. And then the next one is like it's just showcasing these lives, and then you just remember like there's just so many people with their unique lives, and some of them suck, some of them are super boring, some of them are really exciting, some of them end really fast. There's just all these different ways that human life plays out. And when I see the zoomed out picture of like, for example, 1 million people walking in the city, and you just remember like my little life, I think it's so important, and I get so wrapped up in all the little things. It's just my little, my little amazing big thing, but it's like this little, little expansive thing. It's just trippy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that what you said about grace too. I mean, that grace piece is there too. We can talk a long time about all the ways you can access joy or play the piano of emotions or creation. What you create from different places on it is different all day. But really, when there's that grace moment, whether you were down and then you're just struck with it, or whether you just asked. Sometimes people they just want it. They just know there's more and they want it. Show me. They can prostrate on the floor and just tell me, who are you? What's here? Who am I? And this grace can come in different ways, or like rock bottom, people call it, will happen. And I like that you reminded us of that and me of that finally there's this grace that's beyond what we completely can understand, that can just bring us peace or understanding or awareness when we didn't know we needed it. Or we
didn't even know it existed.
We didn't even know it was an option.
Yeah.
It's on the menu.
Sure.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that reminder. It's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think it seems like we're winding down. I'll finish with the tips to keep the dream alive. So we asked my mama, Miss Jill Cooper, what is your tips for the world, tips or for your son, for whoever, the tips to keep the dream alive?
What's the dream? Tell me a little bit more about the dream before I answer you.
The dream could be a blank line of like you could replace dream with like, I don't know, hope, the persistence, because life beats everybody up. It's just a fact. The more I grow, the more I see it. Like you just get beat down by life sometimes. Everyone does. And that's just part of it. But we still strive. Like you said, the plant still strives to grow. It still looks for the sun. So you've had I don't want to say exciting, but you've had a very interesting ride and an interesting life. Yeah, you've had an eventful life. For sure. Very far from dull. So for you to still be you and so positive and such a light, even when you're feeling down or even when you're moving through things, there must be something you have, you know what I mean? Something you have for yourself that helps you keep going. Basically, it's like, how do we keep going through this fucking crazy life.
Crazy now's
life.
A good time. That's a great question for these times, because people, it's everywhere across the globe. People are having their just WTF moments often. And, there's a mental health crisis happening. There's these pill manufacturers just making money overhand, over fist, and there's all this stuff. So what inside of that, the thing that comes to me, whether it's your small little problem or these big global ones, is really starting with, there's a gap between the measure of the gap between expectations and reality is the degree of suffering. And just knowing that there's only two things: either you make some changes to make the change to close that gap between this expectation of, say, what's right or what you want or what's fair, whatever. You want a garden and you're over here, you don't have one, and you're upset that you don't have vegetables. There's a big gap, you suffer. Well, you can do something, you can plant some vegetables, or you can change your mind and go, I don't need the garden, and then you match it, you come up over
here. Go to the store.
Go to the store, and just eat something else. So I think that if a lot of the time from working with clients, I've seen often this gap between expectations and reality is causing a lot of unneeded suffering when there's one or the other. Sometimes it's harder to do those things, and then there's other processes. But yeah, I would say look at ways to close that gap. Either change your expectations and come match over here to reality, or change reality to match, and the suffering's gone. It's I think that's one thing. And inside of that is the thing I've been probably already talked about, is just I whatever you put after the word I am, take it very, very, very seriously. And here is about the best thing you can say at the end of that sentence. I am here. Yeah, I am here.
I'm alive. I like that.
Yeah, it's a peaceful place. Yeah.
I always think like, I'm hungry. Like, I'm hungry. You'll be like, you'll be just a little bit hungry. Like, I'm so hungry.
I'm starving.
I'm starving. Like,
mine is that grass is greener thing. It's like, but we all did that. What's over there? What's over there? Okay, I've told you that story. But yeah, I think I'm here. I don't know if that's the kind of tip that you were looking for. I have so many I could talk to you all night about that.
Okay, give us one more. It's not fun. It's tips to keep the dream alive. It doesn't have to be just one. These are good. Yeah, come on.
Well, I'd say, okay, let me give you two more. Everything's included. Everything's included. If you want your sense of humor back, just say everything's included, and include what just walked in the room. Include it in your story. After it's already happened, maybe you want to make a change. Maybe it's devastating. Like, I got to make a change. But first, include it. Include it in reality, because the resistance to it is going to diminish the ability to reach that awareness, that powerful awareness that we want. So I would say it's something that has to be experienced and not talked about. Everything is included. You try it for a week, and you'll notice your life raising its level. Include everything. Welcome. Bring it on. Bring it on. This is included. Babies are crying. It's included. It's included. Yeah, because we go through life, not that. Okay, that, not that. It's exhausting of our life force energies, and it's very yogic to just center and say, I include everything here, the work, all of it. And then, we make discernment, we make change, we activate, we still do from this place to change the world and to plant the seeds. But first, everything's included so we can be really present for it. So that's another tip. And my last one is that.
You said,
what?
You said two. We're waiting for the other one. Come on. I got my mom here. I feel like I need to get it all, because people out there, you don't understand what I've been blessed with for like 32 years. So give us one more.
You too. Well, we have to do another one, and you can give me your tips though, because I love your tips too. You've helped me. One of the reason I'm writing so much is too. You've always had that belief in me. Is keep writing, keep doing it. And it's been.
Yeah, I remember being a kid, and you kind of like told me that's what you wanted to do, and I was like,
yeah.
Well, what the fuck? Go write, like I just had no question. Like if my mom wants to be a writer, then that's what she is, and that's what she'll be.
Yeah.
I literally remember having that feeling of like, why isn't it done yet? Go, I just knew like if that's what you want to do, then that'll be it.
Yeah.
So
you
I
did.
Still believe that.
You always believed it.
For you.
Yeah, you never wavered on that. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so my other tip has to do with. I've told you this story before, but I don't know why it's so dumb, but it cracks me up. When you kids were little, and I used to swim a lot in the Sound, and I had a friend there with me, and okay, you guys sit here with the kids, and I told you, okay, I'm gonna swim across the Hood Canal. It was a long swim. I could see over there this little island thing, little peninsula that was glowing with golden light and this beautiful green moss, northwesty light, the sun shafts through the trees and the water sparkling around this beach. And we were kind of in this like leafy, rocky, northwesty, dirty, rocky, when you guys were swinging on ropes and all that. And I just wanted to go swim there and come back. And so you're like, go, Mom. And I was swimming over to this little oasis. And I'll never forget getting out of the water. And I climb up there just tired, and I sit down, and I see it's filled with, I see my little people across on this other side. And I look, and it's this like golden oasis with the sunlight coming through, and the grass is green, and it's the oasis. And I look around, and I'm just like in this leaf littered, beautiful, muddy, rocky place with some moss. And I just laughed because the cliche of the grass being green was like, it really isn't. It really isn't. You go there and see it. It's in the micro. Your world is where it is. Your world right there. Like Jonah, your brother-in-law, my son-in-law, posted something today on social media about the micro world, the mini world. Love it so much. Where it's just like this, if you're feeling out of it, zoom in and look at like a little tiny piece of sand, or what's right here. What is right here? What this pen writes, whatever it is, just zooming in. And I thought it's so beautiful that grass is not usually greener. If you are going to make a move to someplace else, it's because it's your soul's calling it, or because it's what you want. It's not because this isn't enough and that's where it is. And I think that's easier said. Humans are like that, but I loved that picture that I got. I never forgot it. The image of seeing the oasis just shift.
Which side?
Yeah. It was just like, oh, thank you. I mean, I knew that, but to have a picture. So yeah, that's another tip.
Yeah, the grass
what
is
about
greener
you?
syndrome.
You give me a tip before we go.
No.
Come on.
No. It's my show. I don't have to. No, I do want to talk about the presents though, because I actually had that on my little mind map of things to talk about, and we had so much to say about that, because I just feel like sharing it with everyone. Like it took me the last 3 years to be where I am now, and I'm probably still not even where I should be. But just the idea of like being where you are. And I'm sure a lot of us, if you're listening, like, this feeling of not feeling like you're where you want to be, not feeling like you have whatever, just something's missing. And I've been feeling that for 3 years. It's all, we lived in the jungle and had our baby, and then there was something missing there. So we moved on again, and that's fine to move. Like you said, we moved on to go visit, family, and we spent the time there, but something was wrong there, and it was missing. It was never home. So then we moved again and spent 8 months in Shargao, and it was this beautiful paradise with a wonderful life, and our neighbors were amazing, but it wasn't enough, and except for the days where I gardened, right, or became present. And so I've just noticed, finally, I started to notice, like, wait a minute, when I look back at all these experiences, these places we've lived in, it wasn't enough. When I look back on them, they were all fire. Like, they were good experiences. I love the people I met. I love the lessons that I gained and the knowledge I gained. One might have been more from the people. One might have been more from the nature and the centipedes, but it was always beautiful upon reflection. So finally I start to take a hint, take the clues. And it's like, why can't I do that right now? Like, cause I keep looking back on it and enjoying it. Why am I still reaching when I have so much? It's literally the golden shimmery water. Like, it's right now in my life all times, but I'm not aware of it. So anyways, the point being is, like, somehow find a way to be present and really just be where you're at and just see all the good things around you and all the grateful things, because all the things to be grateful for. Because then when it's taken from you, you're going to notice all of a sudden. It's like, why wait? Why wait? Because when it's gone, it's very easy to be like, oh, I like that thing, or that was nice. And that, this storm and leaving Siargao was like the tip of the iceberg for that, of like, man, I reflect on my life there. It was heaven. It was wonderful. We had everything we needed, and it was beautiful. It has shifted, and now we're here and we're fine. But I just see that was like the culmination of it. We thought we didn't have community, and we thought we needed a certain kiln, or we thought we needed this. But when the storm hit, and that 2 weeks following, everything showed itself. It's like, you think you don't have community? This is your community, and you are part of it, and you're all thriving together. Creativity, this, that, it didn't matter. All of it, we had it all the whole time. But we spent 6 months feeling like, oh, it's not right, or we want to go here. What do we need? What can we bring? Where can we go? Always something else than like, this is where we're at, and it's fucking perfect, Wow. And I won't claim that I won't, fall out of that again, because I think it's human nature to forget, but you just come back and you come back. So I guess that's my tip. My tip is like, really, really work on the just gratitude. There's someone out there that got a lot more than you that's having a harder time. There's someone with a lot less than you that's having a better time. Just be where you're at and like be grateful, because I don't know.
Beautiful.
That's mine.
Love it. Thank you.
But also, to bring it back to you, you taught me that. It's been like 3 years. I mean, it's been 30 years, but the last 3 years, you've been like a key point, because I've literally been in this cycle where everywhere I go, I don't feel like it's the right place. And we were in Palawan, where we were going to give birth to our child. And I remember you just kind of like, not laughing at me, but just hearing the way I was explaining my life. And you're just like, once you got over that, like, judgment, you told me, just pretend like you're going to live there for the rest of your life. And it just always felt so temporary. So when you said that, it changed my whole life. That day, and when I went to the place I always go to get vegetables, I stopped somewhere else and got paint, and I got a plant, and I just recreated this space we were going to move into. I painted the walls, I patched up some cement, and that in itself, I felt so present, and it was like work, but I was doing it for my baby to come live in there, so it felt so good. And that simple switch of like, it doesn't matter if I leave in 2 weeks or tomorrow, whatever. I made the space as beautiful as I could. I made it a wonderful space. I put plants up. It felt so good. And I just remember being content with it.
Yeah.
And then being content with that, I would probably leave it, and then hopefully someone else could enjoy it, because I've enjoyed plenty of spaces that I didn't do anything to deserve.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't I just end up there and I get to enjoy it. So I because at first I had resistance, like, man, I bought this paint, I paid for this, I did all this stuff for this room, and now I'm gonna leave it. And I realized, like, no, it's great. Someone else is gonna move right on in, because the space is there.
Yeah.
And it was abandoned before.
Yeah. Yeah,
anyways,
I think
that
I
was
told
you
that
telling me,
story.
like, just live like you're gonna live there forever. And I was like, how can I do that? I know I'm gonna leave, but I did it. I tricked my mind.
Yeah.
And it made me so much happier.
Yeah, if we all lived like that, we would take care of the planet, right?
Yeah.
If we all lived like that, we would take care of this place, because we put heaven off into some sky instead of right here. And if we knew this was heaven,
you might clean up a
we might take care of it. And if we thought each spot we happen to be in, what can I do here with this and to make it better? Then if we all did that, imagine I mean, you can imagine. And I remember I think I've told you this, when I had the same feeling that you're describing. I was living somewhere, and I like to plant trees wherever I go. If I can plant trees, I plant trees. The little ones, or babies, or fruit trees. I just love to plant trees. And this place, I had some room, and I planted a lot of fruit trees. And knowing I might have to move, and I wouldn't even get to eat the fruit, the peaches and plums, and I was like cherries. And a part of me was like, oh, I'm not gonna even get to see these blossom and fruit. It's going to take 3 years, and they're baby. But I loved planting them, and I thought, okay, somebody else is going to have 10 fruit trees. I just imagined this little orchard kind of. And everywhere I went, I was planting things I love, and then thinking I moved often, so I'm not going to get to see this bloom someday. And that's okay, just keep planting. But then when I moved here, it was funny. The garden was coming into bloom that time of year last year, and there were so many of the plants that I had planted and left for others. This massive fig tree, and raspberries, and huckleberries, and flowers, and things that I had planted and left already mature here in this little tiny yard. And it wasn't required, but it was just this like, oh, it's all you're working in. You're always contributing. It might come back to you in the exact same literal way that you planted it someplace else. We don't understand, I think, the physical rules well enough to understand how that works, but it's just another kind of small life reason. You're gonna reap that. Just keep planting it and beautifying, and whatever your thing is, if you're planting trees or you're just appreciating it with your heart, you're going to leave that there, and something that you can appreciate with your heart is going to show up for you elsewhere. So yeah, that's a good one. I love that you brought that up, and being present with it too. There's so many ways of being present. People get kind of knotted up, right, about what's it mean to be present. I don't know, what is it when you say be present? What do you mean?
I mean, the simplest way is, like, for me, it's usually creating or doing the things that bring you into like what you're working on. So working with plants and soil always just brings me completely there. For me, making music, I'd like to say it's like a meditative state of mind that you can just, do all the time, but sometimes that's not real. You need like a booster, and that's like music, cooking really, doing dishes, that one is like, I break stuff all the time, or I feel like I'll be going and I realize I'm about to break something. So I calm it back down, and I really feel the water, and I really clean, I rinse the thing, and and it changes the whole experience of washing the dishes just because I was present. And like, if I wasn't present, I would probably break another dish, like it's always, that's the simple way that it shows up of like, boom, you weren't paying attention. So yeah, there's like those things going into your, I again, like I want to say like it's just about a meditative state, but I think that as humans, we get blessed with like options of crafts to choose and paints to play with. And I think that the therapeutic aspects of art are there for everyone, even if you're choosing to be an architectural engineer or whatever, it doesn't mean you can't draw every once in a while and just feel that release or that presence of mind. So that's the main thing. Finding the things that just make you present, that make you forget about everything else. But then I'll say one more thing I've been reflecting on. Like I am a little over like the modern like focus on being present. Be present. It's like, that's cool, fine, but actually like it's also nice to have good memories and like remember things. You know what I mean? And it's also nice. Like I have kids now. I'm like, I need to start planning for the future. It's nice to live in the moment, you know what I mean, and be present. But I'm also, and I think that the modern be present thing maybe can be misconstrued into like just live in the now, which is silly. It's silly. And it's like you can move through your moments with presence. But like I want to think about like next month I still got a family to take care of and like a life to cultivate. So I like to lately I like to honor past, present, future.
Beautiful. Planning and remembering and learning from the past. And
if it's stressful, then you identify why am I stressing about the future? Then there's something to be said. Okay, you're going the wrong way, but like if you're planning, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're going back to the past and like altering the charge on memories or doing whatever, that's fine too. Like we should go. I think we should visit the past and the future.
Yeah.
And the more you can clear those out, then you can be here more.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, I want to say one last thing before we go. You said it was so amazing. So basically what you told me is to live everywhere I am as if I'll live there forever. And then when I told you the story about that, then you kind of said like, yeah, you said that if we all lived like that, we would take better care of this planet. And I thought about it, like wherever you're at, you have like this little, because you said we're not waiting for heaven up there, where like, if you realize this was it, what would you do differently? And at that moment, you become like, wherever you are, how small it is, or land you have, whatever, you're a guardian of your little domain and your little slice of heaven.
Yeah.
Right. And then I thought like, oh, so we're all kind of guardians of heaven. And then we're all, so it's we're all these little guardian angels with their own little spaces to play with.
Yeah.
And it's just really special, because then I think about you and like, you are an angel, you are a guardian angel for me, like in a very real sense. You've kept me safe and alive. You've probably really kept me you've kept me alive one way or another. And I'm sure you've been I'm sure there's people who have chosen not to kill themselves because you just smiled at them, or because they really knew you, or whatever it is. I just know wherever you go, you're just sending off this like angelic, love to people. And it's really special, because I think there's levels to this shit. Like we're all angels, fine, but you're like
there's levels to
you're the top angel. Yeah, you're
the
goddess level.
I know what you're saying. We get to steward where we are. Love that when you said that, I looked around my plants, and we have this little, wherever we are, we go out into, especially with internet, which thank goodness, or you and I would not be talking from across the world right now. So I appreciate this little magical box that we're talking through. But at the same time, when we stay here with this, where we are, we have that soil and this. You taught me something so beautiful when I was kind of like thinking about also moving or something like that. And like, as long as it's a place I can create. And it's like, that just really, really sung to me. Like, I will never look at my shelter again without that being at the first priority. Is this a place I can create? That changes everything about decisions for me. And then add to that the stewardship piece, that no matter where I'm going, I'm going to treat it like I'll live there forever, meaning take care of the plants that are there, or the animals that come my way, or the people that cross my path or come into the space. So I think if we all did that, it's just these little circles. We honor the gifts that we've been given, and the space we've been given, and our bodies, and our ourselves, like how we drink enough water and things like that express, we're stewards of this stuff, this life we've been given, our avatars. And I guess when I think about they make you thirsty, me too. Drink some water to that. I think about one thing I wanted to share. We're taking or going far longer, but about being present. That's so. I agree that the modern idea of it is sometimes not reasonable, but a way that it works for me to be present, or the way I understand it, I'll say, is being with. So the expectation that we should be present is almost like you have to be in your experience, which is a subtle difference. But if I'm with everything that can happen, I might be in my zone, I might be out of my zone, I might be, in abject grief and or in joy, or working, playing. But if I can be with it like a really good mother, or everything starts to expand, there's just so much more space. I don't know how to explain it. So if I'm conscious of this happening right now, so I'm here fully present in it, to use that word again. But if I'm also with it as a soft kind of witness, then love becomes present for me right away. And that's when I make those words all one, like awareness, love, creation. It just starts to be not just words, they're a living they're living thing, that energy that's happening when I'm with it. So I try to think of presence more as being with whatever is here, whether that's a feeling in my body, or I'm eating or talking to you right now. It's like, am I here with it? And sometimes I'm not, and I come back. So it's less pressure, and it includes everything, because I don't get a grade on it. Am I present enough? It's just, am I with it? Am I here with this? Can I be more with this? Can I listen and be with it? So
we call it being with the shits.
Okay.
With the shits. That's a different thing. But now that I think about it, it's really what it is. It's a presence. To be with the shits, you got to be with, like, you got to adjust and be aware and be sharp.
That's
It's a different concept, but it's very relatable. I'm gonna have to build on this later with someone.
You have to expand on it.
But the awareness aspect is cool. I watched that with Lumen, like with how I treat my daughter, and like it might be a few days in a row where I'm not being very aware, and it's just like feels like it's burdensome. I'm tired of watching her. I'm tired. I don't care to give the effort, and that's not very loving, right? But when I can slow down and I become aware of how I'm speaking to her, or how I'm even watching her, and how I'm judging the things she's doing, it really feels more, I don't know, I'm with it. I'm more of a participant. I just watch it, and then she always responds really well. She's a lot nicer to me, and is more engaged, and like she responds instantly because she's 2, so she's sharp like that. Like,
I'm just gonna ask you, it changes the environment too. It's not just changing how you experience your life, but that's the part we didn't talk about, that the feedback from that is
it goes out to play. It goes out and comes back, for sure. And with a 2-year-old, someone who's so psychically sharp, it happens really fast. You know what I mean? You can see you can do experiments and see very quickly, like, what you're sending out. You can get it back. Really, a 2-year-old's gonna throw it right back at you. So I'm like, why does she keep hitting me? Like, why is she yelling at me like that? Like, I should probably watch how I talk to her. It's real quick with the little sponge, and they're so psychically in tune. But I don't beat myself up. I'm like, I'm a great dad. No, I make mistakes. I don't do it all the best, but it's fucking hard. It's hard.
And she's so lammy and lovey and sweet.
That's what you think. You just see her on the video.
I know, and I just want to kiss her little cheek so bad.
Let's close up the thing. I'm gonna go get Lumen and say hi, and then, but let's close up the thing. We'll sign off from the recording. Thank you so much for blessing us.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Bye, mama, but not bye. I just go get baby, okay?
Okay. Love you.